Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, August 17th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. So today we have a great number of celebrations. We'll get started with the Abbot Orsini, who tells us that today, Philip the Fair, King of France, wins a battle over the Flemings after asking the aid of Our Lady of Chartres. This took place in 1304. The note is added that out of gratitude for this favor, he gave to it in perpetuity the land and lordship of Bears or Bars, founded a daily mass forever, and left to this church all the accoutrements which he wore on that day of victory. This feat is kept in the church of Notre Dame at Paris, the feast. Yep. And on the following day, the 18th, and the office is double. Okay, interestingly. But we also have two very important apparitions. The first is in Ireland, Our Lady of Knock. That's not the apparition, actually. This is the feast day. The apparition actually took place on August 21st, 1879, to a group of 15 people. So if you're familiar with the apparition of Our Lady of Knock, like I said, it was the evening of August 21st, 1879, when a heavenly apparition occurred at the gable wall of the parish church, when Our Lady appeared in the company of St. Joseph and St. John the Evangelist. Unique to the Knock apparition was the presence of the Eucharistic Lamb in front of a cross, standing upon an altar and surrounded by angels. It was a completely silent apparition that lasted for about 2 hours, and 15 official witnesses gave their testimonies to a commission later that year. So you might be wondering, well, why do we celebrate Our Lady of Knock today if the apparition is on the 21st? Good question. That is because the August 21st was already assigned to Pope St. Pius X, the Pope of the Eucharist, right? And so they chose August 17th as the feast day of Our Lady of Knock, right? And so, again, the actual apparition date is August 21st. She celebrated today, August 17th, because the 21st was already taken. So, interesting story for you. Happy day of Our Lady of Knock. And you can also celebrate on the 21st. Celebrate twice. Why not? And today we also celebrate the apparitions at La Vang in Vietnam for Our Lady of La Vang. This took place on August 17th, obviously, in 1798. So what had happened? Well, the emperor of Vietnam in that time restricted the practice of Catholicism because he didn't want it to spread. So in 1798, he started putting restrictions, and then soon after, he actually issued an anti-Catholic edict and began persecuting the Christians. So many Catholics sought refuge in the rainforest of La Vang in the Quang Tri province in Vietnam, and many became very ill because they're hiding out in the jungle. They used to actually gather each night, this hidden community, to pray the rosary at the foot of a tree. And one night, there was an apparition that surprised them. In the tree branches, a lady appeared, wearing a traditional Vietnamese dress, the áo dai, and holding a child in her arms with two angels behind her. So people there interpreted it saying, like, this is the Blessed Virgin and the child Jesus. They said that Our Lady comforted them and told them to boil leaves from the trees for medicine to cure illness, right? So why is the image called La Vang? Well, part of it is that maybe it's a derivative of the Vietnamese word meaning crying out. Other people thought that it's the name of the La Vang, like the place, but it's also leaf, and Vang referring to a species of jasmine, which was the tree that was there, right? Interestingly enough, they say that actually has healing properties, right? So people drank the tea and they got better. So in 1802, those Catholics returned to their villages, so after 4 years, right? And they spoke about this vision of La Vang. In 1820, they actually built a little chapel there at the site. From 1830 to 1885, there was another wave of persecutions, and the church was destroying that little chapel, right? However, in 1886, once that set of persecutions ended, they built a new chapel, right? And so, slowly but surely, the shrine was reconstructed. It was destroyed during the Vietnam War in 1972, even though Pope St. John the 23rd had elevated it to the rank of a minor basilica, right? We're told that there's no official Vatican recognition of the event. I think the local bishop certainly approved it, if he told them to build a church there. But John Paul II officially recognized the importance of Our Lady of La Vang. And he said he had hoped that they would rebuild the church in honor of the 200th anniversary of that vision. And sure enough, actually, the Vietnamese government prevented them to rebuild the church, right? So that's quite wonderful. Last but not least, we also celebrate La Madonna di Belmonte in Belmonte, right? Today they celebrate the anniversary of the coronation of that image, right? She's actually been crowned twice, once in 1788 and another time on August 17th, 1888, right? There's a tradition that says that even Saint Anselm and Saint Eusebius honored Our Lady on that mountain, right? But we do know for sure, right? We know that there was an abbey of Benedictine monks that arose on that hill. It's about 2,000 feet above the town of Valperga in northwestern Italy. Apparently, the abbey was founded, and he actually, the king of St. Arduin, the Lombard king of Italy, actually went and spent the last of his days in that monastery, right? Some stories say that Our Lady herself actually appeared to King Arduin to tell him to build these abbeys, right? But as time went on, things like the abbeys just sort of declining. Yep. In 1326, Guido II, the Bishop of Asti, entered religious life at the age of 15 because he was paralyzed by gout. And then he dreamed that Our Lady appeared to him and healed him, asking for the renewal of Belmonte, right? The following day, the bishop was so well that he could celebrate Mass, and then he bought the abbey and restored it, right? And he bought Benedictine nuns there, right? So Benedictine sisters lived there until 1601, until, in accordance with the Council of Trent's decrees against sisters living outside city walls, go figure, I didn't know that was a thing, they relocated. So at their departure, they decided to move the old statue of Our Lady, which grew dark. The church grew dark, and Our Lady's face grew pale. And so they understood that as a sign that the statue should remain. The Franciscans came and took it over. And there were more and more miracles that took place. And after the Vatican investigated, they canonically crowned the statue, like we said today, August 17th, 1788. 1788? 1888. Well, in any event, that's interesting. She was crowned that day. They said that during the Napoleonic era, French soldiers took Our Lady statue in a mock procession. And they were going to burn it, but before they could light the fire, a storm blew in and they scattered. So the pious neighbor who was there at the time grabbed the object and took it back to her house. After Napoleon was defeated, Belmonte was rebuilt again, and it says a second coronation took place in 1888, perhaps August 17th, we don't really know. The golden crowns of the Madonna and the Child of Belmonte were stolen in January of 2006. The Archbishop of Turin blessed them and then crowned them again a third time on the following August, right? Interestingly enough, we don't know a lot about the statue, right? It seems to resemble a style that was popular back in the late 1100s, in which the child sits in the middle of his mother's lap, facing forward as if on a throne. And so that is what we are celebrating today in the Marian world on August 17th. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we start with meditation 66, entitled On Calvary, the Crucifixion. And our first point is entitled Preparations for the Crucifixion. See now the arrival in Calvary. After the excruciating way of the cross, Jesus has finally reached there, not without having several times stumbled and fallen to the ground. Crushed by the pain and the fatigue, he is exhausted, pale, blood-stained. The executioners have also arrived, and wasting no time, they set about preparing all the requirements for the crucifixion of our Lord and of the thieves. Follow his poor mother at this moment. She has also climbed the hill. She knows what is awaiting her. Yet, courageous and resolute, she is ready to bear it. The execution of a man, no matter how big a criminal he has been, is always an impressive and horrible sight. What then would that scene cause in the sensitive heart of Mary, his mother? Do not leave her. Let the crowds climb Calvary out of hatred or curiosity. You remain near the sorrowful mother, and while watching, listen to the pantings of her heart. The executioners brutally tear away from Jesus all his garments. Fresh blood gushes from those renewed wounds. He remains bruised and naked, exposed to the eager eyes of the spectators. Hear the laughter and vulgarities of the soldiers and of the executioners. Maybe his own Jewish people echoed the same mocking cries. and try to hear the echoes in the heart of Mary. What would her heart feel on seeing her Jesus in such a state? Presently he is stretched with violence on the cross. They grasp one of his hands, press it onto the wood, apply a nail, and vigorously strike it home with a hammer. A shudder runs across the body of Jesus as the nail pierces his wrist. Observe his lips compressed in pain. See him choking back the cry that would escape from his mouth. His eyes, filled with involuntary tears, are lifted to heaven. He looks at his Father. His thoughts run to you. He speaks to you. This, he says, is for you. Then another blow of the hammer, then another, and then another, until both hands and feet are nailed to the cross. Can you not see those nails piercing the heart of his mother? All those blows find a terrible echo in her heart. She felt every blow as fiercely as he did. She also shuddered. She also looked to heaven. She also thought of you. But how do you feel? What do you do on seeing Jesus and his mother in such an ordeal?
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.